Hello, in this video I would like to show you how to use PCG AIO graphs to create a little set dressing diorama, this stone circle I've made here. I think it's pretty nice. All you have to use is some instances of the PCG AIO graph, a few minutes of work, and you have a nice little set dressing ready. Well, let's get to it. Let's start creating our little diorama by spawning a PCG AIO example field. That's a graph that will give us a bit of a nice little grass field. Now nothing shows up, that's because it requires a spline. The easiest way to give it a spline is to spawn a BP PCG spline closed actor. And let's resize our spline. That's going to be the shape of our grass field. Now nothing's happening, that's because we need the tag. We need to tag it correctly for the PCG graph to see the spline. And we can see what tag it's looking for by checking for it in the details panel. Spline sampler actor tag, there we go. We can just copy that and paste it onto our graph actor. Tag, add a tag, and in a second we should have a field of grass. Enter. And there we go. Quick and easy little grass field. It's a little bit too uniform. So let's maybe have the grass disappear as it goes away from the center. So we can choose the graph, PCG graph, go into its parameters again, and there is a section called transform by distance. Let's say transform by distance to the center, and set the actual transform. Let's move it down by 40 centimeters, let's say. So the points that are further away from the center will be moved down by 40 centimeters. Here we have transform by distance, which is the actual distance of the blend between the two transforms. You can see here. That's the distance of the blend. And we have the transform by distance offset. That's the distance from the center of the graph that will not be affected by the new transform. Let's set that to, let's say, 5 meters. And give it a second to regenerate again. And there we go. Now our spline isn't actually matching it very well, but that's no problem. We can just move our spline a little bit. Give it a second to regenerate again. And there we go. Nice grassy circle that we can spawn our stone circle onto. Maybe there's a little bit too many flowers. It's looking not as wild as I would like it to, so let's go to the Smart Spawner section of the PCG graph, ground meshes, and let's find the actual flower one. There we go, and just decrease its weight from 0.05 to 0.02. That's just the density of a specific mesh in the PCG graph. And there we go, we have less flowers. I think it's looking a little nicer now. Let's spawn our stone circle now. That's an easy thing to right click in the content browser, type in PCG instance. Let's call it PCG underscore AIO underscore example underscore stone circle. There we go. And we need to set the parent graph to PCG underscore AIO, and these are all the parameters we can use. I don't think we're gonna use a mesh sampler for it or a radial cast. what we will do, let's disable it, and what we will use is a spline sampler, and we will not sample the interior of a spline, but we will sample on the spline itself. So we will place boulders along a spline. The distance increment governs the distance between individual boulders or points that will be spawned on the spline. So let's set that to 5, maybe 3 meters, 300 Unreal units. Now the spline is gonna be looking for is gonna need an actor tag of PCG spline. So let's copy that. We need to first spawn our PCG AIO stone circle graph into the level, and nothing is happening because we still don't have our spline. So let's go to the ready-made actors, BP PCG spline this time, not a closed one, and let's make a nice little circle out of it. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's a little nicer I think when it's a bit organic and imperfect, but there we go. We need to add that tag that we've copied before, PCG spline tag, enter, and in a second, no, it should not be a component tag, it should be an actor tag, so let's choose an actor here, actor tag, let's enter it there. And in a second, it's regenerating now. Give it a second, we should see some boulders appearing in a circle. Yeah, well, what we actually forgot to do is tell it to spawn boulders on the points. So let's just go to the smart spawner section of our new PCG graph and set the ground meshes. Let's clear them, clear the default ones. And let's set our boulder mesh, and there we go. We have our boulders. Now they're a little bit random, that's because the spline sampler has its roughness value set to high. Let's set that to, let's say, 0.2, which will make the spacing of the boulders more uniform. Now let's add some randomness in the transform of individual boulders. Rotate them on the z-axis by a minimum of -180 and maximum of 180 degrees on the z-axis. Let's disable uniform scale and give it some minimum scale on x, y, and z. There we go. Now that's a little nicer. We can add a little more variance in the angle. There we go. That's a pretty nice looking stone circle. Next thing, let's maybe spawn some additional greenery growing onto our rocks. Let's close this. There is a PCG graph instance that might work for us already, which is called a PCG AIO example nature. This one, give it a second, is using a radial raycast. What it means, it's casting points from the center of the graph and creating points wherever it hits a surface and spawning meshes on there. Well, that's looking pretty nice, and I'd say we might want to add some more points to the graph, and we can do it by going into its properties, some more points from which the grass will be spawned. Go to radial raycast and allow it to use radial raycast, use additional positions. Now this is the tag that it's going to be looking for. It's going to be looking for the tag on the actor, and the actor we can use is BP PCG point. We can just add this tag onto our actor and it should cast a new set of points from this point. And there we go. A lovely bit of greenery on our stone circle. Let's maybe have a path going through the middle and cutting out a shape in the grass. So there is a PCG graph called PCG AIO example cobble path. Let's spawn it into the world. And that's another graph that's gonna be looking for a spline to sample. So let's look for the tag that's gonna be looking for. Spline sampler, actor tag, path sample, path spline. Let's copy that tag and spawn a spline actor. Before we create any path, let's position our spline where we want it. Go back to the main actor. There is a tag that we've copied that we need to put into the actor tags. And now give it a second and we should have a stone path. And there we go. We can't really see it right now because, well, there's grass growing over our path. We can cut the shape out of the grass. We just need to select the grass PCG graph actor. An easy way actually to do it is to select the PCG component, type in tag. In the blocking section, set the spline blocking actor tag. We can set it to path spline, which is a tag that already exists on our spline. We can use any tag or any amount of tags. Now, the shape that it's cut out is a little narrow, so what we can do is go into the blocking settings and let's set the blocking bound size, which is the size of the points that will be cut out of the graph. Let's set it to 100. Yeah, that's looking nice. Now also our additional greenery needs to have that boolean applied to it, so let's repeat the steps. Let's go to the AIO example nature graph, PCG component, blocking section. Let's set the actor tag, path spline, which is the tag of our path, and increase the bounds, let's say to 120 this time. Or we also need to check use spline blocking there. And now we have a nice path cut out from our stone circle. It's pretty nice. Now to add some mushrooms to our graph, what we can do is choose the example nature and go to PCG component. Instead of creating a new instance, we can just change the settings and the component of the already spawned PCG actor. We can go to ground meshes and it would be wall meshes. We can just minimize this one and create a new one and set the mesh to one of the mushrooms, one of the wall mushrooms. There we go. Now the problem is the mushrooms are growing all different directions. There is a function in the smart spawner that we can set attempt force point up that will attempt to point all the meshes upwards. You see all our meshes are pointing in one direction, but they need to be rotated in their local space. So I think that would be 90 degrees or minus 90 on Y maybe. There we go. And now we have mushrooms pointing outwards from their surface, growing from the rocks. Now I think that's pretty nice for how quick it was to set up. Thank you for watching.